but hey, I mean, that's a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back. It's week 8. We're 4 weeks away from the playoffs, and the 2A district races are starting to come into focus. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, Grant Goodwin here. Sideline to Sideline, brought to you by SI Design and Printing, week 8 2A edition. And first off, how are you doing?
Doing well. Kind of a bad football weekend last weekend, right?
If you're a Texas, Cowboy, or Aggie
A&M,
fans, or Houston, they lost 2 on the last second field goal. So, it was rough. Tough. I will say, I think, and I'm not a big moral victory guy, but I think for A&M in Texas, there's still a lot to feel good about. A&M quietly might be salvaging a season that after that Miami loss. Speaking of Miami, did you see what they did?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember Kevin Steele of Baylor back his first game against UNLV?
This might be as bad.
I still think his was worse because so if you don't know, we'll reset it first. In Miami game this past week, they were about to beat Georgia Tech. All they had to do was kneel on the ball. For some reason, they decided to fumble it. I mean, they decided to run it, and then they fumble. Now, in saying all that,
after a good 7-yard game.
After a good 7-yard game. But in saying all that, the defense just makes one play after that, and they still win the game. But Georgia Tech hits a big pass play. They score. They upset Miami. And now Miami, at one point, was in control of their destiny as far as making the playoffs. Now they're going to need some help. But back in 2000, Kevin Steele, a very good defensive coordinator, both at pro and college level. He had taken over Baylor, and they're playing UNLV, and they're going in. They're already ahead. They're going in. They're at the goal line with 10 seconds left, and you either kneel on the ball or you score. And Steele, being one of those coaches that's all fire and brimstone, wanted to show that it was a new era for Baylor, and they were going to be a tough team. They fumbled the ball.
Was that the original all gas, no brakes?
Yeah, all gas, no brakes. There you go. And they fumble the ball, and with no time left, UNLV scoops and scores for 98 yards.
Don't give Jerry Tarkanian an extra shot.
Okay, he wasn't there as the football coach, but
you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But still, though,
just subscribe to Google because Google it.
What is your deal with Google and AI tonight? Are you AI? How do we know you're real? Oh God, never mind. Not only are you real, you're the whitest guy in the world at this exact
Probably
moment.
Second whitest guy because the other one's sitting right across from me.
I ain't doing no robot, my friend. All right, what we're gonna do is what we always do. We're gonna review week 7, preview week 8. Speaking of bad football week, this is a real kind of light week as far as the big 2A matchups, as far as on the state level.
Yeah. A lot more to review, I think, right?
Yeah.
But the games coming up to preview are just kind of few and far between. There are a couple of good ones, though.
And that's kind of how it is. You either get it like in 4A and 3A where you tend to have a lot of the districts do their bye the week before district, or like in 2A and some 3A and 4As where you do the district buys. And so you're going to have a couple weeks. And also with the run up to the playoffs, we tend to shorten our late season shows a little bit. And then once the playoffs get in 2A, y'all haven't seen it yet. We pick every 2A game in the playoffs. And so that, especially those first 2 weeks, the 2A shows are going to be a lot longer than the regular season ones has. We've been trying to find our footing. But let's start week 7, a game that L4 Media was at. Toller beat Coleman 43-0. And you and I talked about it, for all the talk about what Peyton Brown does for Toller when he's healthy. They haven't had him all year, and they've been just fine.
I think blessing, man. He's been a blessing, right?
Oh, God.
He has.
Yeah, he really has.
For 141 yards, ran for 120 against the Coleman team that a lot of people thought were going to – I don't think anybody really picked the Blue Cats to go in and beat the Rattlers, but they expected them to play them a little bit closer, and I might have thought that as well.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be – and we both said we thought Toller would win going away, but I thought it would be more like – 43-20, something like that, where Coleman at least had made it close earlier in the year. Coleman had gone into that game on a 5-game winning streak. Their only loss was by 9 to Mason to begin the year. And that turned out to be a pretty good loss with what Mason's doing.
Yeah, Mason's running the table right
now. Yeah, they
man.
really are. And for Coleman, Hamilton, Toller's just the better team. And that's the thing Coleman has to worry about, because if you're wanting to do things in this district or in this region in the playoffs, you're going to have to go through Toller again.
Yeah, you really are. I mean, again, I know it's like a broken record, but they look so physical and tough up front.
Yeah, they really do.
Of the ball.
And that's where, and it just amazes me to think that, up into this year, and it looks like Toller might even have to worry about Crawford, but Crawford had been Toller's poison.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were kind of talking about that a couple of weeks ago. If you're Toller, that has been such a big thing for you. Beat Crawford. You haven't been able to beat Crawford. I almost feel like it could be a negative if Crawford is not there, because then a lot of the pent up anger and workouts and focus, sometimes teams will lose that when the team that they are wanting to beat just isn't there.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how Toller is going to be handling it, because it doesn't look like Crawford is going to be there unless Crawford turns things around quickly. Were you a little bit surprised by this one? Sonora had to hold on to beat Ozona 49-38. Edgar DeLuna ran for 257 yards. Jamie Bultrin threw for 214, 4 touchdowns. Great offensive, but to give up 38 to Ozona is a little bit surprising.
Ozona is better than what that record shows, I think.
I agree.
But I can honestly tell you, going into this week, last week, I did not think that Ozona was going to be able to stay within 10, 14 points like they did. I thought it would be 3 touchdowns, maybe even more. But Sonora puts them away. Sometimes, you're a good team. You got to play these dog games sometimes, and it's how you respond in these games. And, the Broncos did it.
I'll say this. Sonora's that type of team you don't want to play in the playoffs. They lost to Miles when they scored 68. They scored 20 against Mason and lost. They scored 36 against Wink and lost. That just speaks of a team that they can just find one defensive stop a game. If that Lion offense is hot going into the playoffs, I just wouldn't want to play them.
Are they the USC?
Oh man, that's it's crazy. USC this week against Arizona, it wasn't even that the defense was terrible. It's just they can't make a stop when they need to.
I know. Well, that's a terrible defense at this day and age. It's all about situational defense.
Yeah, it's just it's making
not shutting people down,
holding them to field goals. That's
right.
That you win the game if you hold them to field goals.
Oh yeah.
And just they could, and they would look really good for 3 drives, and then Arizona would just go 5 plays and score.
Right.
They are at least exciting.
You just got to get them off the field on 3rd downs is what you got to do more often than not. If you can do that more often than not, they can add 300 yards.
Now let me ask you this though, as we're now devolving into a college show.
We got time.
If you're USC and you're Lincoln Riley, why are you not just hiring the best defensive coordinator you can find and saying, seriously, you fix this. You're the defensive guy. I'm going to run the offense.
I guess you got so many scholarships to give, right? And you spend the majority of them on the offensive side of the ball and then try to fill holes in the portal, but that still costs you.
That still costs you scholarships.
Yeah,
it's just, this is something that's chased him from Oklahoma, though.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Marshall, Texas kid on that USC roster.
Yes,
Tajay Washington. Well, he is developed into a Marshall, Texas. Legitimately, will have 2 wide receivers in the NFL in the next couple of years, and they played on the same team. And the furthest they got was a region final because their quarterback his senior year decided he didn't want to play football anymore. Anyway, back to 2A. This is what we do, folks. Speaking of East Texas, Garrison. We talked about this game last week. Javion Black ran for 123 yards on only 14 carries. Omarion Raspberry ran for 128, only on 10 carries. As they beat the Dragons of Shelbyville 49-14. Garrison's now 7-0. And that diversified offense, that's how you challenge a team like Timpson.
Yeah, Shelbyville came into this game 3-1.
Yep.
Probably had high hopes, but you're right. I mean, they just, Garrison taking care of business, and I guarantee you they're looking forward to that district championship matchup against Timpson in a couple of weeks, right?
I got in the weirdest debate on the Texas 2A page on Facebook. First off, we enjoy
Stay off.
No, we love those guys. We love Texas 2A.
Stay off social media, sir. You need to stay focused.
I mean, our job kind of depends on our social media push.
Well, that's true.
But anyway, so he was talking about, and this wasn't like an argument. It was an interesting view that he had. Mm-hmm. He was talking about last year, the tough games that Timpson played. Mm-hmm. And of course, he named Refugio and he named a couple others, and he didn't name Garrison. And I said, well, that Garrison game was pretty tough. That was a 1-possession game. He goes, yeah, but we scored on them. They couldn't stop us. And I'm like, yeah, it was 44-38. Y'all couldn't stop them either. Yeah, but they couldn't stop us, so we were going to win. And I was just like, it kind of goes back to what you talk about with the defense. That's where defense is now. It's just if just make us stop, and it completely changes the game against these high power offenses.
Yeah.
But I
think if you can be a good defense on third down, that's huge.
Yeah,
being a good defense on third down, and a defense on first and second down, maybe not in 2A, but that's a whole different personnel going back to college, right? That's a whole different personnel in college and NFL. Is you're putting probably 3/4 of the defense is different on third down as far as personnel.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And as you said, it's situational defense.
Yeah.
Holland beat Thrall 41-21. Holland now is 6-0. I don't want to say they're quietly 6-0, but they don't get talked about a lot in the scope.
They're
a
lot like Mason. Who's talking about Mason on the statewide issue, right?
Yeah, Holland's ranked 10th in 2A Division I, but to be honest with you, most team when you're 10th, you kind of still oddly kind of get forgotten about. I mean, not inside your district and everything,
right?
And they're in a district where, I mean, the best team was probably Thrall. They're 5-2. Holland's now 6-0. Flatonia's 5-2, but man, they lost to Thrall, and they haven't really played. They did beat Shiner St. Paul, but I think it's weird how both Shiner, the private and the public school this year, both are a little bit down.
Right.
But I mean, Flatonia, I guess Fall Cities was their best win, but Fall Cities has kind of not been that consistent this year.
Yeah, they haven't. I don't think Fall City is good as what I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, right. It felt like that.
I mean, they entered the season
with a ton of 13 starters back from an 8-5 team. And if you, by the way, and this is for any team, if they've had injuries or something, please let us know. Grant and Terry at S2Ssport.com, because I legitimately thought that they were going to come in this year and be just like they were last year, a 13 game team, or maybe the year before when they made it to the state championship. Their losses are to Poe 33-0, Stockdale 24-21, and then again Flatonia 35-28. Speaking of, Stockdale, they're looking pretty good this year.
Yeah, they are.
Anyway, let's keep going. Sunray beat Lubbock Christian 34-0. Armando Luan threw for 191 yards, 3 touchdowns on 20 completions. We've been bringing
that's a huge game right there, man.
We've been bringing up Sunray and Armando a lot here. Again, another team that I don't think a lot of people talk about outside of their region, and what they can do once the playoffs hit. They are the number 6 team in the state. Their only loss was to Stratford. I think it was 23-20. You look at the
brackets. If Sunray keeps doing what they're doing, and they get the seed that they need in the playoffs, there's a clear path for them to make it to Arlington. If you look at the projected brackets, Sunray is right there.
Well, and last year they got tripped up by Vega at the last game of the district season, and that kicked them one slot down, and they had to play New Home in the second round, and New Home had to pull it out the end 22-21. There's no reason why, if Sunray can take care of business inside district this year, and I think they will. The Longhorns of Vega are down. They're 2-5, but they are 1-0 in district. Boys Ranch isn't as good as they were last year. Groover's 5-2, but the Greyhounds, the two or the one team that they play that's on a state level in Stratford, they got to beat 57-26. So for Sunray, you take care of business and you get that 1 seed. I agree with you. You're not having to play New Home in the second round. You're getting to play them in the 4th round, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, the bracket. Look, I mean, Sunray's good enough. It doesn't matter what the bracket is, but you give Sunray a favorable bracket. It looks like, just as a prognosticator here,
you nag, yes,
a predictor, that you need to start, if you're from Sunray, maybe start making some reservations to Arlington hotels, maybe, because it's looking very favorable for them.
All right, speaking of favorable, Wink beats Iran 34-7.
Yeah.
They're quiet. Again, it just feels like 2A division out there. You just don't get a lot of people talking about it, even when they're ranked. And maybe we're just not, we're used to the channels that we know. We hear all the 3A and 4A buzz and stuff.
Maybe it was that loss to Alpine 19-18, maybe, that took some of the shine off of Wink outside of the region, right? But I mean, Kimed Fasain ran for 176 yards on 19 carries. I believe the kid's like a freshman or sophomore, right? So if I'm not mistaken, Is he? Can you
I don't
look that up?
know. Okay, I'll
Help
try.
brother out. Google.
Google what?
Winks.
I
roster.
think he's a.
But
Go ahead. I think he's a junior this year.
oh, is he?
Let me check.
But I mean, Wink has rebounded since that loss to Alpine, and they're looking strong. How about Chilton 28, Bremont 27? This is probably the game of the week in 2A last week. Bremont went for a 2-point conversion down 28-21 late in the game, and Chilton stopped it to preserve the win.
Yeah, when you look at the Bremont Tigers' losses on year, they're 3-3. They lost to Kearns 27-26. They lost to Holland, who we just talked about how good they are, 31-21. And now they've lost to Chilton 28-27. This is why people, when they talk about Bremont, even a couple years ago when they were down going into the playoffs and they only had won like 2 district games, they went on that, 3-game run in the playoffs that kind of surprised everybody. Bremont is just such a hard team to beat.
They got those tough Bohemian kids down there, man.
Yeah, and they just never give up. In saying that, let's give all the credit in the world to the Pirates, who are now 6-0, 1-0 in district. And I know Granger's 5-1, but I don't know if Granger's any better than Bremont. In fact, they play this week, so that would be an interesting game just to kind of keep note of. Is Bremont and Granger, just kind of see where Granger calibrates to Chilton, because them and Chilton play the next week. That's a real tough stretch for Granger.
Yeah.
But anyway, 13-2A.
Give me Bremont over Granger.
Yeah, give me Bremont. I even think Milano might beat Granger this year. The Eagles, they have a tough schedule. I don't know if this was by choice or just where they're at and finding games. They've played 4 private or /charter schools. So it's real hard to get a gauge on them, but they beat Bartlett to start district. Milano did 28-6. They play Iola this week. This is a real good district outside of the non-district. You've got a 6-0, a 5-1, a 3-3, and a 4-2, and then a couple bad teams. But 13-2A Division II. It's just kind of interesting how it's played out. And, Chilton beat Bremont a couple weeks ago. They barely beat Hearn. We both thought they were going to beat Hearn by a lot more, but that just might be what the Pirates are. Some teams, they win.
They've got explosive athletes.
Yeah, but they win, but they don't ever blow opponents out. But that doesn't mean they're not good.
Right.
I think sometimes even us, but especially all fans at the high school and college level, style points sometimes takes a little too much precedence. And I think with Chilton, that might be one of those. Anyway, that is a look at week 7.
How about Collinsville 40, Celeste 17? That's the last one. That was a big one. You were big on Celeste. That's right in the middle of the run sheet.
Oh, it sure is. My bad. And good. Celeste in that first quarter.
I'm producer, CEO.
Okay, yeah. Taylor, you want to make your comments on that right there? Speaking of Taylor Lee, he's our director and executive producer. We do appreciate his editing skills.
I meant not executive producer, assistant to the executive producer, but CEO.
Oh, you're like a undercover boss. You like to work at the lower levels.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to know that you're Grant the boss. I just think you're some new host that's coming in.
We got to have a talk after this.
Celeste for the first quarter and a half did exactly what they needed to do against Collinsville. They kept the ball away. They had a lead. The thing with Collinsville this year is they've learned that, hey, on these games when we don't get the ball a lot, we've got to not take it those plays advantage and take them for
when you
advantage.
can stretch the field like Collinsville does with that quarterback,
and that puts
a lot of pressure on a defense for 4 quarters.
And I would love to know if Carter Scott has started playing it. So many 2A guys this year are not playing, or they're being held out to the last possible moment. And I get it. I have no problem with that. But if you're a Collinsville fan, or if you know if Carter Scott's back playing, but yeah, good win for them.
What's our email address so they could?
Well, I've already given it. If you don't know it by now, Grant and Terry at s2ssport.com. All right, we've reviewed. Now let's preview week 8.
Kind of a thin week.
Very thin, but there's a couple good ones. Let's start with Cisco and Stanford. That's one of those games that, if this was a bigger week, I don't know if we would talk about it as much. But
no, because Cisco comes in 3-4, been a little underwhelming.
Yes, but let's talk about that. Okay, we're going to talk about one of the teams they lost to, Clyde. They lost to Wall. We know how good Wall is in 3A.
And Clyde might be the big boy now out in the region in that 3A.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about that in the show, in the 3A show. Jacksboro, look at them. They're unbeaten.
Yeah.
And then Breckenridge, the Buckaroos are a very solid team. When they went back down into their level in district, they're 3-0. And if you survive those type of schedules, we talk about it in 3A with Brock. We talk about it like Pleasant Grove plays tough schedules. Sometimes those schedules can break you, but sometimes those schedules can make you. And I think with Cisco, I think that the Lobos are getting better each week. And I know.
Are you calling for the upset here?
Yeah, actually I am.
Are you?
Yeah, because it's in Cisco. I'm telling you, I have no problem with who the Bulldogs have played this year, but it's been Hamlin, Haskell, Ballinger, Winters, and Olney. Cisco has played a tougher schedule and played well at times inside that tough schedule. I know they got their doors beat out of them a couple times. And I know I'm going to regret that because Bulldogs have a ton coming back. They have that running back, Caston Vega. They have a really good wide receiver in Charles Moore, who's like 6'6". But I don't know. I'm calling for the slight upset in that one.
I'm going with Stanford, but in a very close one.
Yeah, I think either way it's a close
than
game.
What a lot of people would think, right? Under a touchdown. I think this will be nip and tuck for Stanford. I think Cisco does have a chance to win this one. Wouldn't not be shocked to see him win it, but I'm taking Stanford in a very close game.
Last year, Cisco won 47-14, but that was a Stanford team that all those guys are back now as juniors and seniors. Last year, they were sophomore and juniors.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where do you want to go now?
Let's go Stratford and Panhandle. Both teams are 6-0. Man, Stratford's quarterback Bryce Braden, a dual threat quarterback. Chasu Licon at running back, and Julio Valdez at receiver. Very good offense the Stratford team has. Panhandle 6-0. I don't know. This is at Panhandle, right?
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to buck the trend here because we use Dave Campbell's for a lot of our information and stuff. And Matt Stepp always gives us some information when we need it. And in the last game, I picked Cisco and they're 21-point underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, Stratford's a 2-point favorite. I think Stratford wins by a couple touchdowns. I just think that their 6-0 is a different 6-0 than what Panhandle. And not that I think Panhandle's a perfectly solid team that, they're probably going to play a couple rounds. I'm not saying that. Last year they were 9-3. They returned 12 of those guys back.
Were you telling me you used Dave Campbell's as your? Because I don't get that info.
Oh, really?
I don't. I'm not. You're not using them. You've got a leg up on me if we're picking here.
Oh man, what have you been using?
And just
RV Bogus Football. I keep telling you that's a bogus magazine.
My own. Like we both don't need it in 3A and 4A.
No, we're learning in 2A.
We're learning somewhat, but I've been going on the fly. I didn't even know you were using that.
Just how I've made it through life with Cliff Notes, buddy. With Cliff Notes. But no, when you look at Panhandle again, they're 6-0. They beat Clarendon. Friona had a coaching change right in the middle of this.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he is already
this past week, right?
Yeah, and he's already now at the junior high level coaching in Muleshoe.
Really?
Yeah, that's how quick that tells you how good of a coach he is when another coach is in the middle of the season saying, "Yeah, come on over, we need you."
Wow.
But Panhandle beat Vega, River Road, Wellington. That was a good win, 38-32.
Yeah.
And then Highland Park out of Amarillo last week, 72-32. Stratford, on the other hand, they're 6-0, beating Spearman 37-0, beating Sunray, who we always talk about, 23-20, Groover 57-26, Vega 52-7, Perryton 33-13, and they started off district last week. We talked about this game, Farwell 38-7. I don't know. I just think
Stratford by a touchdown.
At least I think we both agree Stratford wins. I just think it gets out of hand. I think Stratford's really good this year.
Yep. All right. Sonora versus Reagan County. Reagan County's 4-2. Sonora undefeated. Edgar Luna, the running back for Sonora, is averaging 261 yards a game rushing.
Yeah, Reagan County, they're 4-2, but they lost their first district game. This kind of feels like one of those games that, I don't know.
They've got a quarterback in Kason Brown.
Yeah.
Who's a dual threat.
But they've just been so inconsistent offensively.
Mm-hmm.
They started off the season on fire. Even losing to Wink, they had 48 points, then 57, then 42, and then 14, or then 22, excuse me. And then against Kermit, they had 40. And then last week that they only scored 12 against Fort St. It's not that they lost. I think the Buffaloes were favored in that game, but I would have thought they'd have scored more than 12 points. And so I don't know. I don't think the Owls have a chance in this game. I think the Broncos win, and I think the Broncos win comfortably, and I think it sets up them in Fort St. the last week for district.
It could. Well, I obviously picked Sonora.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos will win this game, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what you think.
It could be. I kind of
Ozona pushed Sonora.
Yeah,
right.
And this could also be not a trap game because it's district, but I mean you've got you beat who if you're sitting here and you are Blake Weston and the Sonora Broncos, you beat Ozona. And then you think Forsan's the next big challenge. A team like Reagan County, how many times do we see that in district? A team like Reagan County who's good, not great, you kind of get in that trap game.
Yeah.
And I could see that. I could see that happening. I'm going to still go with Sonora comfortably simply because it's at home. I think a lot of those trap games usually happen on the road in high school.
Yeah. All right. Last one is not because it's a great game, but I think it's worth mentioning Honey Grove.
Yeah. The Warriors, man, they keep doing it. They win again last week, 54-0 over Rivercrest. They're going to be on the road this week against Quinlan Bowles. Quinlan Bowles is not a great team.
2-4.
2-4. But here's what Quinlan Bowles has done at times, and that's score a lot of points. They scored 59 against Clarksville. They scored 49 last week against Como-Picton. And so you're wondering if they can just find some trash points or anything, just something.
At this point, I'm rooting for the Warriors to preserve this shutout season
until Cooper.
Until Cooper, right? I would love to see this Honey Grove defense remain unscored on. It's almost impossible to do that for this long. But they've done it so far.
And you and I, we even talked about it when we first started kind of noticing 3 weeks ago. It doesn't matter who you play in today's era to hold a team 4 quarters shutout is just impressive.
Yeah, but Honey Grove's got the linebackers in Mason Banker, Levi Beavers, Asher Price at defensive end. You look at them. I've gone back and seen some of their games online and highlights and stuff. They pass the eye test, especially defensively. The size that they have, they're very physical and very athletic, man. And then Rylan Morris at quarterback and Dion Morris at running back. They just seem very complete, Now, again, they should. I know they're going to beat Bowles.
Yeah.
The thing is, are they going to, keep Bowles out of the end zone or, just out of the scoring column? Let's see. But I think their next one is, they'll dispatch of Bowles here pretty easily, no matter what. And then the big showdown next week.
And against Cooper, last year they lost 36-8. And last year, this defense was almost doing the same thing. It wasn't quite all shutouts, but I was really surprised when I started going back and researching. Last year they gave up 20 and they lost to Howe to begin the year. And I remember we wrote them off from that and on the KETR show. Mm-hmm. But after that, they gave up 0, 0, 6, 20, 22, 8, 36 to Cooper, 6, 0, and then 6 in the first round of the playoffs. And then they get in the second round and Centerville just blows their doors off.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the same thing if you don't beat Cooper this year. And as great as this Honey Grove offense,
I don't think you hang your whole season on the Cooper game.
Well, you're going to see if you lose to Cooper, you see Centerville in round 2 again.
Yeah, well, Centerville's beatable.
Are they?
Yeah.
I don't know if Centerville's any worse than they were last year when they beat Honey Grove 54-13.
No, but I think Honey Grove might be a lot better than they were.
And that goes back to, again, and it's not, it's not their fault. It's their fault. Their schedule, we just don't know.
Yeah.
We won't know to Cooper. And I think one of the things that hurts Honey Grove is they don't know until Cooper. There's nobody on that schedule before Cooper that challenges them like Cooper or a Centerville or Munster or whoever that team is out of that district.
No matter what happens against Cooper, as long as Honey Grove is in the game, I think Honey Grove has a chance to win the game.
I do too.
But even if they don't, as long as it's not like, say, Dallas and San Francisco.
Oh, God, dude.
I'm a Cowboy fan too.
Pick another one though, man.
Okay.
Dallas, San Francisco 95. Oh, wait, that's the same. Never mind.
But, it wouldn't take any shine off of.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about shine. I'm just talking about it puts them back on track for a second round matchup with Centerville if Centerville wins their district.
I'm Honey Grove. I'm rubbing my hands.
And I'm not. I still think
it's an adventure, man. I think they're good enough.
Centerville's a 3-touchdown favorite in that game, easy.
Do you really?
I will say
think they might be favorites, but I don't know if it's 3 touchdowns.
And I'm not knocking Honey Grove, and we have a guy that sends us all this stuff.
Not like Centerville's lighting it up on the offensive side of the ball,
but they are.
Are they? I mean, how'd they do against T?
I mean, not Centerville. I'm sorry. You're right. Well, no, against Jefferson too.
Yeah.
Against Jefferson. Yeah, you're right. Okay, you're right. But is it fair to compare? I don't know. You're right.
It's probably not fair to compare schedules, but you know what?
Yeah, no, you're right.
You know what? We're 3-4 weeks early right now.
Yeah, I know.
This.
That's how much we're ready for the playoffs. All right. That's going to do it for week 8. 2A. Again, any questions, thoughts, or comments, you can email us, Grant and Terry at S2S Sports. Find us on Facebook, Sideline to Sideline, on Twitter, at Grant and Terry. If you're listening to this on our website, S2SGrantandTerry.com, you can go to YouTube and watch the video. And if you're watching the video, always remember you can listen to us also at S2SGrantandTerry.com and on all podcast platforms. Until next time, he's Grant, I'm Terry, and this is Sideline to Sideline, the 2A edition, brought to you by SI Design and Printing.